It's all the same thing.
This was all staged because they knew you were coming in.
Well, they
put the 2-minute rule in. They said that they were not going to take any questions. They wouldn't read anything. They would not respond. They tried to hide under the phrase public input to say, oh, we have nothing to do with this. They did it because they wanted to stonewall you.
Well, the reality is, and this has been in some papers, and there was mention that I said something that there was a conspiracy. I don't know if there was a conspiracy, okay? But,
I do.
But I know for a fact that they knew what I was going to do that night. You know how I know that? Because I told them, okay? I told the principal what I was going to do, and it was in every paper. It was in the front page of the Laconia Sun that I was going to go in there, put the paperwork in front of them, put 313 in front of them, and say, if it's good enough for my daughter to read, then why don't you read it publicly? I told them I was going to do it. So they knew for a fact what I was going to do. So because some people are like, well, did they know you were going to do this? Maybe I think they knew. I'm like, well, they did know. I know they knew. I told them. So they knew what I was going to do. And as far as I understand, which you know much better than I do, Skip, the 2-minute rule, yes, I know it's common in school board meetings and city council meetings and everything. They do implement that type of approach sometimes. But my understanding is that in Guilford, under those circumstances, it's highly unusual that they implement a rule like that. And I think we need to really point out that 2-minute rule, as Sue Allen, the chair of the school board, made very clear, that 2-minute rule was predicated on the idea that there were so many people present at that school board, meaning that the only way we can be fair to everybody, for everybody to get their turn, is if we limited everybody's speech to 2 minutes. The reality is when she said, would anybody like to speak? And I waited 10 seconds. Maybe I'd still be waiting there for somebody else to speak if I didn't say, all right, it's getting uncomfortable. I guess I'm going to speak. And it was one of those Ferris Bueller moments, anyone, and nobody raised their hand. Nobody stood up. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I guess nobody's even going to support me here. It wasn't like I rallied a bunch of people. I had almost nobody's email information. I mean, Josh, obviously, I knew, and Josh was, part of the setup, if they want to call it that. But other than that, and with my family, I didn't know who was coming. I tried to contact people in New Jersey, and believe me, I'm not holding up New Jersey as anything great, but we used to have directories handed out at the beginning of the year with every parent's name, address, phone number, and email in it, and physical address too. We could get in touch with anyone at any time, which I would have done if I had access to that information, which the school obviously does. And I don't know what they did about it, but I know I couldn't get in touch with people, and having been so new to the community, we had almost nobody to get in touch with. So I'm sitting there thinking, as the time is clicking away and you hear the crickets in the background, I'm thinking, I guess I'm on my own here because nobody's even getting up to support me. So that's when I got up. Well, my point is that belies her premise that the reason for that 2-minute imposition, that 2-minute time imposition, was because there were so many people who want to speak. It's untrue.
And I'd also like to point out that I didn't see any vote being taken on the 2-minute rule. Was that decreed by edict?
Yes.
Or was that... Okay, so that wasn't voted
pretty
upon.
Much. I also note that all of the papers refused to print page 313 because they said, we can't do that.
They said basically, like the New York Times, all the news that's fit to print, they wouldn't have printed this because this wasn't fit to print. As Ed Engler, the editor of the Laconia Sun and the mayor of Laconia, said, his estimation is that basically he'd be shocked if anyone in the country would print this in its entirety.
But it's perfectly good, according to the Guilford School Board, that we can give this out to 14-year-old freshmen.
And they claim that in a controlled environment, that's why they're releasing this information to 14-year-olds in a controlled environment. Well, what type of credentials do these English teachers have to be able to be teaching and pushing social psychology on people? Health class. This is an English class.
Listen, Josh,
this is ridiculous.
This teacher, Miss Engel, couldn't even remember.
Gail Hutchinson.
Who did I say?
Engel.
Oh, that's the other. Right, that's the other. Sorry,
that's the editor.
Sorry. Okay, Miss Ed Engel. Sorry about that. Hutchinson without the N. I know it's not easy for me. She couldn't remember to send out the notice last year, and there was an oversight this year as well. So she's qualified that's the controlled environment. My understanding also, and you can confirm it, or the papers and the media can confirm that my understanding is that she loves the author, according to my daughter. She's read the book multiple times, and she's actually read that specific page out loud, and they've discussed that specific page. I mean, how do you do that? You're sitting, I mean, I can't imagine sitting. I'm having trouble reading this privately, and like to sit there with 20, 14, and 15-year-olds and read about
Yeah.
about.
Let's throw
my,
another.
my children are here. I'd say what it's about.
Yeah, I'd throw another name out there, Scott LaLiberty, who is supposedly the curriculum head in Guilford. It's like, he's got a historical past where he was caught when he went from the Guilford school system to become a mucky muck up in Moulton Borough. Mm-hmm. He flat out lied to their forming budget committee about what the budget committee in Guilford was doing. He had to go back and apologize. Now, he's never apologized formally to the Guilford budget committee as constructed back then. And here he is brought back now, so we have a confirmed liar on tape, which I posted on Guilford Grok.
Right. Guilford Grok. Oh, boy.
Oh yeah, we've been around for a while. So, it just seems to be these people get in the mind that we can do what we want and we're not held accountable. That's really what it comes down to.
I think Jacob had a comment.
Oops, hold on. Go ahead.
The main point is that the school has been replacing a parent's judgment with their own judgment.
Bingo.
And that's what they've been doing for 50-plus years, and it's just more evident now because of the content of this book that they want everybody to read.
But it's because parents are not able to stand up and assert their rights. I mean, look what happened to you. You stand up, you assert your rights, and you get shot down, shut up, and arrested.
Well, and that's got to stop. I think more people do need, and I think even though you may not have seen it in the meeting, behind the scenes, you're seeing a lot of people advocating for your point of view because a lot of people, especially right of center, are saying, we've seen this ourselves, and they're writing about it a lot. They're talking about it a lot. You've ignited a firestorm of controversy at this point, and certainly I can see that you feel put upon it. Yeah, getting arrested, that's certainly getting put upon. But I think you've ignited a national moment where people are starting to say, what is going on in my school?
Well, that was kind of my point in not.
I hit a button.
That was kind of my point in making this public. It wasn't to embarrass Guilford. If that's the fallout of it, I'm sorry. It wasn't,
I wouldn't be.
It was that I kind of weighed the options, and I thought that it was important enough that people, at least in this community, I didn't realize it was going to go basically international at this point. I was thinking that people in this community needed to have real knowledge of what's in that book and the judgment that implies on the part of the school board, that they're introducing this with no notice, no consent, nothing. That was really the point. It wasn't to embarrass. Listen, when the property values start to take a dump in Guilford, I own my house, okay? So this is not good for me either.
Right.
And at this point, I might be selling my house, so it's even worse for me.
Yeah. No, I understand that, and I have to salute you as somebody who said, I'm going to stand up for my principles. I'm going to stand up and defend my children from what I consider to be a predatory educational system. They don't see themselves that way, but when they decide, and I think you put it very well, when they put their when they put their judgment in front of the parents' judgment, that's a problem.
Well, and they don't.
And then they don't allow the parents to speak out against it.
Correct.
Well, you could speak out. They just
arrest you after you do it.
When you speak out and you don't have the opportunity to ask a question, or even if you have the opportunity to ask a question and you don't have the opportunity to ask a follow-up question, as we see, it's basically meaningless. Okay, that's why there's cross-examination. Okay, that's why you just keep cross-examining until you can't cross-examine anymore, because there's a reason for that, okay? And that's the job of the press, and in the school situation, that to a pretty significant degree should be the job of the parent. They should have it be where the parents ask as much as they want, and they get answers back until the parents say, okay, parents rest. That's how it should be, and it's not like it's the opposite of that, as I found out. That's why I said, well, what's the proper mechanism for interacting with you, the school board? And they basically said there is none. As from my understanding, interact meaning I ask a question, you give me an answer, and then I don't like your answer, I ask you another question, and then if I don't like that, I ask you another question. And I'm paying the taxes. You're supposed to be really working for me on the behalf of my children. And I can't even ask a question. I can't ask a follow-up question. And just so it's clear, I'm not anti-government. I'm not anti-cop. I'm not anti-prosecutor. Okay? My father was a cop. He was a World War II veteran in the 10th Mountain Division, Purple Heart winner, combat veteran in World War II. So if anybody wants to paint me as whatever it is, they're going to have a problem. And like I said, he was a police officer. Okay? So that's a little word out to the cops and the prosecutors and everybody else here.
Okay. Well, very good. Like I said before, thank you very much for coming in and spending more than a few minutes with us here at GrokTALK, production of GraniteGrok.com. And I would say we're pretty much at the end of what we need to
We're
be.
getting there. We got about 60 seconds left before I start the music. I wanted to thank Jacob and Marina for coming in. And I know you didn't get to say anything, but
Yeah, thank you.
it's good to have you here and supporting your dad and just really, it's a big story, bigger than you ever thought it would have been.
I never imagined this. I just wanted some answers to some questions.
As a blogger, I can tell you, you never know what people are going to be interested in.
Well, it's been stunning and humbling that this has been the response, literally, certainly coast to coast and literally around the world. I did a television show in that's broadcast all through Canada, and we're getting emails and comments from here. Josh, where are we getting stuff?
You got about 20, 30 seconds.
All right, I'll listen once I can remember. Denmark, Netherlands, obviously the UK, all over Asia, Australia. They're coming from everywhere. In fact, Marina's video with her commentary, she received 200,000 hits last night.
Wow!
200,000 video views in 6 hours. Overnight. Outrageous.
Wow.
So,
Good job.
good for her.
Good job for
Marina.
both.
If you guys need anything from us, just let us know. Okay. Thank you so much for coming in. All right, that'll close out this week's Grok Talk. Thanks to all our guests, and we'll be back next week with more news and information and more Grok Talk.
Grok TV.